you want to try to, around that time, try to continue, even on a holiday, eating around that time. Say you're having Thanksgiving lunch at around noon, and you eat breakfast at like 9 o'clock, and you want to be sure to eat your breakfast. And if you're really wanting to still kind of save room for that Thanksgiving lunch, consider eating less for breakfast, kind of more of like a little snack instead of a meal. That way you're still getting your meal in, and you're still able to consume your carbohydrates and keep those glucose levels in check. And then you'll still be helping yourself to save some room, and you can still enjoy a lot of what you like when it's time to come eat Thanksgiving meal.
Yeah, good boy, Tyler.
Thanks.
And also, you just want to keep those meals regulated, because that's going to help prevent highs and lows in your blood sugar to keep everything going. But one thing I also want to talk about is my plate. I'm sure all of you have seen this at least once or twice. So this is a really good example, something to use that you can use with both populations that you deal with. So here, this includes all 5 of the fruit groups, which is fruits, vegetables, protein, grains, and dairy. So the serving size that we should have at each meal, we should have 2 cups of fruit. And you notice the vegetables is a little bit larger than the fruit. That's going to be 2.5 cups of vegetables. And we have about 6 ounces of grains at this. And we want to try to make at least half of our grains whole grains. And I'll talk about that in just a minute as to why that's so important. But then down here we have our protein. Of course, we want to choose lean protein sources, which will be about 5 ounces. And then we have our dairy off to the side here. So why it's important to make half your grains whole grains. This is beneficial to both the populations that we're talking about. One of the main things is fiber. So fiber is going to help keep your blood sugar lower for longer. It's going to make you feel fuller for longer. It's going to help bulk stool and help regulate bowel movements. So this is a great thing, and it makes you feel fuller after you eat it. And that's one thing that we definitely like to feel, because nobody wants to feel hungry throughout the whole day. But we get those whole grains whenever you go to the store and you see whole wheat bread versus white bread. So the whole wheat is going to have all 3 parts of a grain: the bran, germ, and endosperm. Whereas your white bread is only going to have that endosperm, which is basically just starch. So by choosing the whole wheat, or the whole wheat pasta, the whole wheat bread, the whole wheat rice, we're also going to be getting that additional fiber and additional vitamins and minerals in with that. So something else I want to talk about is starchy and non-starchy vegetables. So starchy vegetables, we all know that is some of our winter squashes, potatoes, peas, and carrots. And we all love those. I love potatoes, I love carrots, I love all of that. But everything else, tomatoes, zucchini, yellow squash, stuff like that, that is all going to be non-starchy. So starchy vegetables have 3 times more calories and carbohydrates per serving as non-starchy vegetables. And that's pretty important whenever we're trying to reduce the prevalence of obesity and diabetes, considering people are saying, oh, well, I'm being healthy, I'm eating vegetables. Yeah, but what vegetables are you eating every day? How often are you eating them? If you're eating potatoes and corn at every single meal and you're eating multiple servings, you're tripling your calories and your carbohydrate intake at each sitting. So that's something that we want to keep in mind here. And actually, for one of the recipes we made today, we chose only non-starchy vegetables to be included so we could promote that low calorie and low carbohydrate, and it's still a good nutritious meal that tastes good. So then something else is sodium. So we do not need to add salt to any of our food. And that seems like kind of counterintuitive. You normally want to add salt when you go out to a restaurant or whenever you're cooking at home just to make it taste better. But in Appalachia, we use salt and bacon grease like nobody else. And that's what we use as seasonings, and that's what our grandparents used as seasonings, or other family members. So it's just been passed down. But there's no need to do that, because honestly, your processed foods, your commodity food items, which are a lot of what your population are able to afford, are high in sodium, are high in sugar, and processed stuff, and in fats. So there's no reason to have that extra sodium added in. And actually, for all the vegetables that we use today, we purchased, and the broths, and cream of, well, we'll get to all that, but we did low sodium and low fat. Because actually, in a reduced sodium vegetable versus a normal vegetable, there's 25% less sodium guaranteed in that can. And we also chose all canned or frozen items because we knew not everybody in this population would have access to fresh foods. And you can still get all of the nutrition from canned or frozen items. So that's something that we want to remember also, is that excessive sodium is not necessary in the diet. One great thing that I like to tell people is Mrs. Dash. If you all have heard of those seasonings, those are great salt-free alternatives that you can use that are cheap. I think the most expensive one I've seen is a little bit over $2. And you can use that to season your food without adding salt into it, but still getting a desirable flavor. So then next, Tyler is going to talk to us about some exercise that we can do.
Absolutely. So with exercise, it's always important to get that in weekly. The American Heart Association actually recommends at least 150 minutes per week of moderate intensity exercise. And especially on the week of Thanksgiving or a holiday where with festivities you're used to serving big meals. It's best to at least get in the 150 minutes. However, if you do plan on eating more at those meals, I typically like to recommend to people to get at least an extra 15 to 20 minutes in, especially with Thanksgiving, after eating a meal. If you can't get it in any other day, it's actually the best to get it in, the extra minutes in for Thanksgiving. Generally, after you eat, after you give your stomach time to settle down, usually I'd recommend about an hour and a half after eating. Maybe grab one of your family members. Maybe go for a 15 or 20 minute walk. That'll help to kind of offset some of those calories that you consumed at your Thanksgiving meal or your holiday meal.
And including exercise in your everyday life is just going to help improve your overall health status, regardless if you have hypertension, diabetes, obesity. So many of those things are common now. So it's just important to include that in your everyday life. But we're going to get ready to start making our green bean casserole first, and then we'll make our chicken casserole, and we'll make the dessert. And we have a few more talking points, but we want to make sure we have time for this to cook so you all can see the finished product. So over here, Tyler's going to make his green bean casserole.
Alrighty. So first, we grabbed our canned green beans, got those open, and then we drained the water using a strainer. Now that we got all of our ingredients out and ready to go, I'm going to go ahead and put this into our mixing bowl.
And there's 4 cans of green beans here, and those are all low sodium options. So we just strain those and put those in the bowl. And then we have a can of cream of chicken here.
And then we're going to add all the cream of chicken to a bowl with our mixing spoon.
And in your regular recipe, it says 2 cans of cream of mushroom. We tried it yesterday. We just wanted to see if the cream of chicken would make a difference in the flavor at all, but the cost and the nutrition value is not going to differ at all. These are also low sodium and low fat options with the cream of mushroom and cream of chicken. So then he's going to add in his cream of mushroom soup after this.
Now that we got this added, we're going to continue mixing until it's all nice and consistent.
And then we also tried this yesterday with whole wheat crackers, and it was not the best tasting. So we looked up the nutrition facts, and honestly, the difference in the French fried onions versus the whole wheat crackers, there was not much of a difference. And it's the holidays. Nobody wants to eat a meal that doesn't taste good. So we said, let's just use the French fried onions and just make something that tastes good, because that's going to be more important here.
We're actually going to
use half of that. And then you'll reserve half to sprinkle on top.
Mix it some more. And I didn't get the chance to try this yesterday with the fried onion crisps, so I'm going to
try it again today.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to trying that, kind of seeing what the difference between our recipe yesterday and today.
And then we're going to have Tyler transfer this into a non-greased baking pan.
Now that we got that transferred, I'm going to spread it out nice and evenly throughout the pan.
this recipe, you're going to want your oven preheated to 350 degrees.
Sara and Tyler, we did have a question from the chat box.
Yeah,
Sue wanted to know if carrots are still considered to be starchy.
No.
Carrots?
No, they're not.
Okay. So I think Sara meant to say corn earlier. Corn starch, yeah.
Oh, corn.
Corn is.
Yeah. Yep, just like potatoes, it falls within that group of the starchy vegetables. Now that we got this nice and ready, we got to throw it in the oven now.
All right.
And we'll go ahead and cook.
And then we're going to get our chicken casserole started.
And I'm going to set a timer on my phone for 20 minutes. That way we know.
Now, normally this recipe would bake for roughly 40 minutes in your normal oven that you have at your home. But since we have a double door convection oven here, it's going to cook a little bit quicker. So we're going to set it for about 20 minutes. Where we have a nice kitchen here. We have some ovens that are a little bit more high temperature, high speed. So the next thing we're going to make is our chicken casserole. And this is one that we had to look around for a bit because, like we were talking about, carrots are non-starchy, but the corn, potatoes, and peas are. And mostly in frozen vegetable mixes or canned vegetable mixes, that's all you can find. So Tyler and I kept looking and looking, and we actually found a stir-fry vegetable mix here that we could use that's frozen. And you can see here, it's got some green beans, some broccoli, some carrots, celery, mushrooms,
We got some bell peppers in there.
some bell peppers, and some onion. And you think, well, that seems a little bit weird, but we chose that because those all have non-starchy vegetables, and you could consume a higher amount of those without getting all the carbohydrates and calories. So with this, we actually doubled the amount of vegetables just because we had extra. So typically you would use about 3 to 4 cups. I think we have maybe 5 cups here of vegetables.
I'm in a meeting. Can I call you back later this evening?
These are just frozen and we just defrosted them. So we're gonna add them into here. And then we also bought canned chicken because we knew not everybody would have access or be able to afford fresh chicken, which is just as good. So you take 2 10-ounce cans of canned chicken, drain them, shred the chicken up. We're gonna add it into here. And then we have another can of the cream of chicken soup. And this is also low sodium and low fat. And then the recipe called for sour cream, and we wanted to make a healthier alternative to that. And I tried to think of stuff that maybe you'd be able to find at a gas station, and I thought maybe you could find yogurt cups. So we're just gonna do 1/3 of a cup of low-fat yogurt. And then we're just gonna mix all of this together. And it's almost gonna be paste-like whenever we get everything in here. And we're gonna mix it up really well. And you will need to spray your pan with a little bit of cooking spray. So Tyler's gonna do that for me. Okay, so then we'll get this in here. So then what we're gonna do with each of these is we're gonna bake them uncovered. And the chicken casserole will bake for about 20 minutes as well. And then the last 5 minutes, we'll pull them both out. We'll add the rest of our French fried onions on the green bean casserole. And then we're gonna add our crushed whole wheat crackers on top of our chicken casserole and then bake them for additional 5 minutes and let them get really browned, okay? So now this one's gonna get ready to go in the oven, and then we will get ready to make our dessert. So before we get started on the dessert and some more talking points, is there any main questions about anything yet? Okay. So we're gonna get ready and we're gonna go ahead and make our dessert while our other stuff is cooking. So this is one that we make at my house, but we put a slight variation on it. So over here, we're gonna start with Tyler. We chose frozen strawberries for this because we knew that not everybody had access to fresh fruit, and the frozen's gonna be just fine. And actually the frozen would have a better texture in this, I think, than the fresh. So we went ahead and diced up a bag. It was a 10-ounce bag of frozen strawberries. And Tyler's gonna show you his dicing method here.
All right, so for this, I like to set them up kind of backwards like that. And I'm going to cut them down the middle. Put them side by side like this. And that's diced enough. And we have an adequate amount of the strawberries, so I won't add the rest of these in here. Cut down this way. And then there you have nice and diced. You kind of pick them apart with your fingers, with your hands washed, of course, which I did before I put on my gloves. All right, and that's how I go about dicing my strawberries. Now we're going to show you how to finish the recipe.
So these are already our pre-sliced strawberries. So here I just have a container of regular whipped cream. I looked at the difference in the sugar-free whipped cream versus the regular, and there really was not a difference in the carbohydrates at all, nor really the calories, so I didn't feel the need to do that because we don't want to use sugar alcohols, which are what is used in sugar-free stuff in excess, because those still provide some carbohydrates per calorie. And also, there is a lot of additives in those, and they can also have you, they can cause GI issues or diarrhea if they're consumed in excess. So if you don't have to use it, there's no reason to use the sugar-free substitute for every single thing. But I am using sugar-free Jell-O instant pudding cheesecake here because the regular one was like 24 grams, and this was 6 grams in a whole box. So this is obviously going to be our better option here. So this will be kept in the freezer until it's ready to be used. You can set it out. And then I just dumped our 1-ounce box into here, and we'll dump a little bit in here. And then you just mix it up. And you have to mix it for a little bit because it will get a thicker consistency. And then when I'm done with this, I like to put it in the freezer for a little bit to let it harden up more. And then we'll add the remainder of our Jell-O mix in here. So then we'll just keep mixing this up. And then once this is fully mixed, we're gonna add our diced strawberries into here. And then we will put it back in the fridge to get cold. And we also have graham crackers that you can dip into it if you wish, like a dip. Or it's also very good on its own if you just wanted to put it in a bowl and eat it with a spoon. So then you can see we've got a nice consistency going here. So I'm gonna add in all of our strawberries.
Sarah, we had a question about the strawberries. So are the strawberries completely thawed or partially thawed before you dice them?
Partially thawed. So I just get them from the store while they're frozen. I lay them on the counter, get my stuff mixing, and then just cut them up and put them in. I actually like them a little bit frozen because it gives a nice texture added into it instead of just being mushy. They're still a little bit icy. So I would prefer it partially thawed if it were me.
And rinsing them prior to dicing them, and that'll help to partially thaw them as well.
And clean off anything else that's in there.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
And then I'm just gonna, and then I'm gonna transfer these to another bowl. And then you would just wanna cover this with some cling wrap or aluminum foil. Or if you have a Tupperware container, you can put it in that too. But this is what it looks like when it's done. And then we also have some graham crackers that you would be able to dip into it. And it'd make a nice little dip spread. So then this would go in the fridge until you're ready to serve it because it is Cool Whip, so it will, be very soft in a quick amount of time. But it is a great alternative. And I believe there's about 16 servings in this whole thing, so this could definitely be used as a dip at a family event. So hopefully you all like that. And then we have a few more talking points. And then if there's any more questions too, just let us know.
All right, so since we left off with exercise, we're going to talk a little bit about fats. she's going to mention a lot about fat, but I want to go ahead and give you guys a quick fact about trans fats, which I always like to inform people about, because it's so those are the type of fats you really want to try to avoid, because those are the ones that are associated with the most health problems, especially if consumed consistently and in high amounts. So in the U.S., products can legally claim to be trans fat free. However, those products can still have trans fats in them and still claim that, as long as they have 0.5 gram or less of trans fats in that product per serving. I always really like to mention that to people. That way they can kind of come to the real, or that can help them realize that there's a lot more to it than what the nutrition label's really claiming. A good way to tell, if you look at the ingredients section, is if it contains hydrogenated vegetable oil or partially hydrogenated vegetable oil, which is just a couple examples. Those are forms of trans fats, and if they contain those ingredients, and it'll be listed in the ingredients section, then it'll have at least some trans fats in it. And usually that'll be by serving. So if you eat like a whole container of like a product that says it has like 10 servings, and then the one serving has 0 trans fat, you could be getting 0.5 gram of the trans fat per serving. And if you consume the whole can, you'd basically be consuming 5 grams of trans fats. And you typically don't want to consume any more than 8 to 10 grams a day, definitely no more than that. So that one product would essentially put you over halfway past the recommendation for trans fats.
And just being able to read a nutrition label is such a big deal that not really many people understand how essential it is. You know, some people will read the food label and think, oh, I'm only getting X amount of calories in this whole entire box, but it's per serving and there's 15 servings in a box. So it's very important to be able to learn how to read that. But something I wanted to talk to you all about is some fats. So here you can see we have some olive oil here, and we have a pat of butter here. So the difference between these two things, our butter here is considered a solid fat, and that means it's saturated. So saturated fat is solid at room temperature. That's going to be butter, lard, margarine, which is why it is not melted like our oil is, because it's a saturated fat. Our olive oil here is an unsaturated fat, which means it is liquid at room temperature. That's going to be your olive oil, canola oil, vegetable oil. So the same way that this looks here is kind of how it works in the arteries of our heart. So let's pretend that this purple straw here is our arteries, and I'm going to show you how this works. So we dip it down in our olive oil, and I pull it up. You see how that dips? It just drips off of it, and it does not clog the hole in our straw. But then if I come over here and dip it down in our pat of butter and pull it up, it clogs the straw. That's the same way that this works in our arteries. So imagine this is an artery in your heart and you're consuming solid fats constantly. You're going to get a buildup of those fats and cholesterol in your arteries, which can contribute to atherosclerosis, which is the buildup of fats and cholesterol in your blood, which then can turn into arteriosclerosis, which is the hardening of your arteries. These conditions are seen with our preventable diseases of obesity, diabetes, and our heart issues. So just being able to make the distinction to choose this liquid fat over the solid fat could really help in heart health care. And you can also find olive oil and canola oil and vegetable oil for low prices. It does not have to break the bank. Even though you can see 4 sticks of margarine for 89 cents, although it may be $1 or $2 more to choose the liquid fat option, it's going to be better for your heart and your overall health in the long run. So then something else we want to talk about is we do not want to drink our calories. So everybody loves carbonated sodas or sugary sweetened beverages like sweet tea, Kool-Aid, stuff like that. But we really want to try to not drink our calories because there's so much more you can eat if you're not drinking all of your calories. And just being able to reduce our sugary sweetened beverage intake, we can help with the risk and prevention of diabetes. We can help with our dental, preventing cavities, bad dental health. You know, we're not going to be spending as much money on those items. And water or a 0-calorie alternative if you can't completely commit to water, like a Powerade Zero, or an additive into a water, like the little packets that they have, like a Propel packet. I mean, that's just going to be great for us, and it's going to make sure that we're staying hydrated throughout the day, and it's just going to help with overall health. And Tyler has a few tips that he wanted to share too during the holidays with that.
Yeah, so now that we're on the subject of drinks, I want to bring up consumption of alcoholic beverages, because I know a lot of people like to enjoy a glass of wine with their meal. So I just wanted to be sure to at least mention it briefly. So with alcohol consumption, especially during the holidays, you want to be sure to keep it in moderation. For men and women, the updated guidelines recommends only one drink per day for each. But it'd be best to not kind of surpass the 2 glasses, especially with those living with diabetes. For those living with diabetes, if you drink too much alcoholic beverages, especially in one sitting, it can mess with your blood glucose levels, and it temporarily blocks the production of glucose in the liver, and it can temporarily prevent the storage of glycogen, which will really influence your blood glucose levels. So you just want to be sure to consume the alcohol in moderation.
Okay, so something else I want to talk to you all about is that fresh, frozen, canned, whatever, fed is best. So, you know, it is nice to be able to purchase fresh meats, fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, but not everybody has that opportunity. That does not mean, though, that you cannot still make healthy choices by using frozen or canned options as well. So if you're going to choose canned vegetables, let's try to do low sodium. If you're going to choose the canned cream of anything, canned soups, let's go low sodium, low fat, if that's an option. With your canned fruits, one thing you're going to want to watch is the sugar content. So typically a lot of sugar and syrups are packed into those cans to keep the fruit fresh and preserve it. So if you can get ones that have no added sugars in it or reduced sugar overall, that's going to be a healthier option as well. But we don't want to food shame anybody because they can't purchase the fresh fruit or they can't purchase the fresh meat. And you can see here that we can still make a healthy, nutritious meal with canned options. Everything we got today was either canned or frozen. I don't think we have one option besides our whipped cream that technically came from the fresh section, and it's still frozen. So, absolutely. And then he's wanting to talk to you a little bit about monitoring blood glucose levels and smart swaps.
All right, so when monitoring your blood glucose levels, what I personally recommend to people to do is at least 3 times a day. Generally, you want to do it 3 to 8 times per day, but at the very least 3. With Thanksgiving, where you're typically consuming more, you want to be sure to check those closer to the 8 times per day as opposed to 3. Especially if you end up skipping a meal to save room for Thanksgiving dinner or a holiday feast, you want to be sure to do that. Generally, it takes food 2 hours to go through the digestion and absorption process after eating. So that's usually when you want to check your blood glucose levels to see if any additional action needs to be taken to get those back down to where they need to be. So I just wanted to mention and advocate for the importance of doing so. And I just wanted to provide those small few tips as to when the best time would be to do so.
So we have about 5 minutes left on both of our casseroles. I just went over and added the toppings. So I just added the crushed whole wheat crackers on top of the chicken casserole and the rest of the French fried onions on top of our green bean casserole. So we have about 5 minutes before those are going to be done. Are there any questions or anything else you'd like us to go over that wasn't clear?
I checked the chat box and there are no new questions, but there is a comment from Sue. She said, nice illustration on with your fats, with the solid and
awesome. I'm glad you like that. We also have this cool model here that the dietetics program let us use, and this also gives you this is a clogged artery where you would experience your athero and arteriosclerosis versus an artery that does not have any of that. And you can see how much harder it is for the particles to travel through. So that's also something we like to use whenever we show that. But I hope you all have enjoyed this demonstration today and that everything's made sense. We are really excited to do this for you guys.
It's been great experience, and thank you guys for having us today.
Yeah.
And I wanted to go over those smart swaps that she was mentioning. With Thanksgiving especially, I know desserts is a pretty common, pretty popular thing it's probably the thing we all look forward to the most, especially myself. That's why making smart swaps throughout your meals, especially on Thanksgiving, is essential for making sure your blood glucose levels are staying within check. So say if you're craving like a piece of cheesecake, and you have your plate full of fruits, non-starchy vegetables, but you really wanted that dinner roll. So in that situation, maybe skip like the dinner roll. That way you can consume some of your favorite desserts while controlling your portion sizes, of course. And by making those swaps, you can really help to avoid from consuming too many excess carbohydrates, especially those from unrefined sources. Yeah, so I just want to go ahead and throw that suggestion out there for those of you living with type 2 diabetes, or for those of you that know someone who is living with type diabetes. So yeah, now we're going to be getting our
We have
recipes out.
left on these. You just want to make sure that your top gets really brown. I mean, not burned, but I like my stuff a little bit crispy. So these both have been in here for about 20 minutes, and then we're going to cook them the extra 5. Now, at your own home, you're going to have more of this style oven here. Follow on the recipe cards, because this one we use so it would cook quicker for our lesson today, so that we could get it done while we were talking. But just know it will not cook this fast whenever you're making it at your house. So we're going to go ahead and pull these out. And then here we have the green bean casserole. So it has just finished up. It's real crispy. So then I'm going to walk through here. And then next we're going to go ahead and pull out our chicken casserole. And Tyler, if you'll shut that off and turn it off. Sorry. So then here, we just got our crackers browned a little bit on top. But here you can see we have made big servings. And then we also have our dip here. And we have some healthy recipes that are ready. And all of this was made for $20, which is just awesome in my opinion, that you can get this many options. And we chose the healthiest options we could for you all. But hopefully these are some ideas that you could incorporate or use with the population that you talk to and try to incorporate in their daily living or for their holiday meals.
Thank you guys again for having us. I hope you guys
have a great, safe holiday.
Yeah, absolutely.
And found some of this information useful a little bit.
And
our
thank you
cameraman
so
put
much.
If
you guys have any additional questions, we'd be more than happy to answer those before we conclude our webinar session.
Okay, so if anyone has any questions, you can feel free to unmute yourself and you can ask questions freely, or you can put your questions in the chat box and I will ask them for you. So we're now open for question and answer time.
Or
Sue has a question.
Later.
I have a question.
Sure.
Thanks so much for doing this. Just thinking about some folks that might have limited, shall we say, oven, that kind of thing. Could you do this could you possibly do this in a smaller capacity, like in the microwave or a toaster oven?
Yes, yeah. So the toaster oven would be great. Actually, for these frozen vegetables, I defalled them because they were frozen up until our meeting. I defalled them in the microwave. Your canned chicken's already going to be at room temperature, and the only thing, the yogurt would have to be in the fridge for that. But everything else from this, you could put this all in the microwave. Now, the crackers on top, it would be best to have a toaster oven just so you could get that crispiness.
Right.
But if you did it in the microwave, I would do everything and then just crush your crackers on top after it gets out of the microwave so those do not get soggy. Same with the green bean casserole. I think just being able to have the French fried onions on top to get crispy, a toaster oven would be ideal. But if not, I think heating it all up in the microwave, then adding them in after would be great so that the texture is not changed very much.
And you could probably divide those into 2 different pans,
Yeah,
depending on the size
definitely.
of your toaster oven or your microwave then?
Yes, and make smaller portions of it. So you could do like 2 cans of green beans in a bowl and then the other 2 cans of green beans in a bowl.
Yeah,
Right.
just divide it up into like two halves and just use the 2
Uh-huh.
small things.
Yeah.
That's a great
Thank you.
question. And if you're preparing the casserole dishes in the microwave, how long would you cook them?
Well, I have not done that yet, but to do the frozen vegetables, to defrost them we use 2 bags of the frozen vegetables here. I microwaved those for about 6 minutes when they were frozen, and they were just a little over cold. So I would say mixing everything in probably 8 to 10 minutes on this one with pulling it out and stirring it, not just putting it in there the whole entire time. And probably about that on this as well, but I can look that up and make sure after this and send an email and let you know, because I don't want to give you the wrong answer for that because I've not microwaved these myself yet. But yes, it would be very possible to do.
All right, thank you so much. Any other questions? Just you can unmute yourself and ask freely. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have another question. Here I am again. Sorry. So maybe I missed, but the whipped cream that you started with for the cheesecake mix, that was like, was that like non-sugar free, non-fat free, you know, like Cool Whip?
So we compared the sugar-free Cool Whip compared to
Right.
the regular. And
Right.
this is what we bought. This is Kroger brand. It's just original
Okay.
topping because there was not a difference really in the carbohydrates. So we didn't feel the need to use the sugar-free on top of the
Right.
sugar-free Jell-O.
Right.
But the Jell-O
is that like
sugar-free.
non-dairy whipped topping?
This is not
And that you
non-dairy whipped.
said that was just, okay.
Yeah, that's just the regular.
This is just
but
the regular.
There are dairy-free alternatives.
Did you say the Jell-O mix was sugar-free vanilla pudding that you mixed in?
Sugar-free cheesecake pudding.
Gotcha. Okay.
And also on the box, it typically says fat-free too. So it's okay to get that version. But yes, it's Jell-O brand, the ones that we used. And it says instant pudding mix, cheesecake, sugar-free, fat-free.
Okay.
And it's just a little 1 ounce box. And then we got a bag of frozen strawberries to mix
Right.
in with.
Okay. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank
And are there any other questions or anything else you all needed us to go over that didn't make complete sense the first time we did it?
So if you could just unmute yourself, if you have a question that you want to ask, it can pertain to the meals that were, the recipes that were prepared today, or if you have a question about something else that relates to nutrition, you can feel free to ask that as well.
One more question. Are we allowed to post these recipes like, you know, on our Diabetes Coalition website? I'm thinking it's probably, I don't know. Well, I guess it's not too late to do it for Thanksgiving, and also thinking for, you know, the Christmas holiday. Are we allowed to do that?
Yeah, I think that's totally fine.
Okay.
Yeah, you can just let them know that you got them from us. And,
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
and then I'll link the website in an email to Regina too. This one is kind of, the dessert was a homemade recipe that I just messed around with, but these two I actually had an original recipe and I changed some of the ingredients. So I'll include the links to those as well in an email to Regina. And I think that's completely fine for you all to post them. I hope people can actually get some use out of them.
Okay. Those whole wheat crackers that you used, were those like wheat thins?
No, those are actually Ritz whole wheat crackers. But
Ritz
I
whole
think
wheat crackers.
yes, because I wanted more of a flaky And
Yes.
normally with the crisp or the baked ones, they're a little bit thin and more
Right.
hard in texture. So for
Right.
me, I would choose the flakier ones.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for our presenters? And thank you both. You did a wonderful job. This is our first time actually watching a live demo during our office hours. So thank you so much for being available to show our coalitions how to prepare not one, not two, but 3 dishes. So thank you so much.
You're
Of
very welcome. Thank
course.
you for having us.
So we do have about 10 more minutes. Does anyone have anything else they would like to talk about or any other questions? Any other questions? Nutrition questions. Sue, you have anything else?
No, I was going to ask you or Sheila about the fresh try recording that you forwarded on to us in that program, but I know that doesn't pertain to this, so I can do that later if you want.
Oh, yes. About the National Diabetes Prevention Program.
Yes.
Yeah, we can talk offline about that.
Okay.
Okay, well, if there are no more questions, I guess we will be done here, but I really hope that you all found this information relevant and useful, and I hope that it can be used with your all's patients in rural Appalachia. And I'll make sure that we send those links to Regina, and if there's any other additional information that you all want us to share, just let us know, but I think it's great that you all want to post the recipe cards, and I hope you all enjoyed this as much as we enjoyed doing it for you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Happy
Thank
Thanksgiving.
you.
Happy
Happy
holidays.
Thanksgiving. Have a great and safe holiday.
You guys have a good one.
All right, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right, thanks.
All right.